Donald Trump isn't just stirring up chaos with his most recent rhetoric, he is laying the groundwork for a dark plan that will begin on day one, so says a top New York Times reporter, and I have the breaking story for you next. While the attack in New Orleans and in Las Vegas continue to dominate the headlines, Trump and his surrogates continue to fan the flames of discourse and twist the truth to fit a particular narrative. But Maggie Haberman, the respected New York Times reporter, broke it down on CNN and revealed the strategy behind the madness. Before we dive into her analysis, please allow me to show you another piece of the puzzle. Enter Tom Homan, a Trump loyalist and appointed border czar. Watch as he wastes no time linking the New Orleans and the Las Vegas to so-called southern border threats. This despite law enforcement having zero evidence to back up his narrative. And on the other side of this clip, I'll connect the dots between Holman's claims and Trump's plan to bring chaos to the White House his first day back.
What they're learning on the ground there in Las Vegas as he side with something that occurred immediately thereafter. They're not aware of any other subjects involved in that case, while they are aware of the similarities to the person who carried out the attack in New Orleans. They are not able to directly tie these two events together. They have no evidence that they are tied together.
Well, look, I think the further the investigation goes, I think they are going to find a connection between the two incidents. But look, they're both side events. The man in New Orleans certainly had no plans to going home for getting out and trading law enforcement. So I think both these men realized they weren't going home after this event. But the threats aren't over. I've been on this network for 4 years talking about the threats coming across our southern border. And, we got a record number of known gotaways. Over 2 million people enter this country. We don't know who they are or where they came from or what their purpose to come to this country. They weren't vetted, they weren't screened, they weren't fingerprinted. We don't know who they are. And we can't let this go on any further.
Tom, just to circle back there, you said earlier, and you just referenced again a connection there in Las Vegas. The police chief said they haven't identified that, but to your point, you said you believed as this investigation carries out in Las Vegas that I believe you just said you believe they will find a connection. Do you have any other information, or have you been privy to any other information other than what we just directly heard from the police there in Las Vegas?
No, I don't. This is a gut feeling. I've done this for 3.5 decades. I just think there's too many similarities, too much coincidence. I think something down the road they're going to show there's some sort of connection, whether it's this, they got whether it's some same network or where they got the tools to pull these attacks off. I just feel like there's going to be something down the road, and I could be wrong. It's just a gut feeling I have.
In case you weren't keeping track, it took Holman less than 30 seconds to shift the focus from 2 U.S. citizens who committed acts of to his favorite talking point, southern border threats. And naturally, a Fox News commentator is not going to challenge him on the facts. But Maggie Haberman doesn't shy away from the truth, and she breaks down why the Trump-Holman disconnection from it isn't random. In fact, it signals what's to come.
Just hours after New Year's Eve truck attack in New Orleans, when confirmed information was scarce, President-elect Trump was quick to suggest falsely that the suspect was an immigrant. As some early reporting on the attack said, the driver crossed the border from Mexico. Trump wrote on Truth Social, "When I said that the criminals coming in are far worse than the criminals we have in our country, that statement was constantly refuted by Democrats and the fake news media, but it turned out to be true." Law enforcement officials have since identified the driver as a U.S.-born citizen and Army veteran from Texas. My source on this and more is Maggie Haberman, CNN political analyst and senior political correspondent for the New York Times. Hi, Maggie. Despite the confirmation that the suspect was born in the U.S., Trump is doubling down on his message, saying that Biden's open border policy has led to a violent erosion of safety, national security, and democracy. Now, of course, there are national security concerns about the border, but that doesn't have anything to do with this case in New Orleans. What's behind this?
Well, what's behind it, Pam, is that Trump has a pretty firm anti-immigrant box in which he fits most things, and this is no exception. They're tripling down. His communications director, Stephen Chung, sent me a statement tying what this incident to, loosely tying this incident to examples where immigrants across the border who had ISIS ties. They were relatively small in number compared to the number of border crossings there are daily. But you're going to, I suspect, see President-elect Trump continue to push this because he has said, and he said it in a speech in Arizona a couple of weeks ago, that on day one he is going to seal the border. And I think you are going to see him use this as a reason why, even though, you don't need to be in touch with people who have come across the border to become radicalized. And there's so much we don't know about why this suspect in the New Orleans incident developed these views. People can develop these online, as we know. And so, again, I'm not surprised that Donald Trump is doing this, but this is what he's doing.
Right. It is what he's doing. And you just have to wonder what he would have said had it happened on his watch, right? As he is very close to taking office for a second term.
What Trump and Holman are doing is called forced association, linking unrelated events to push a narrative. On the surface, it's illogical and it makes Trump look scattered, but he's fine with that. He knows that media attention is fleeting and that the gullible base does not focus on details. Instead, they remember the dramatic sound bites that reinforce their fears and biases. By twisting the tragedy in New Orleans into a tool for reiterating hate and bigotry, Trump is doubling down on racism now, so it seems completely normal on day one. It's a tremendous double down from the Trump playbook like the world has never seen before.
Believe me,